let's get down to business. Give you one more night, got this. We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down to business.
March 2017, I'm at lunch with a friend, and what I didn't know that I wished I knew was that my friend that day, by the way, if I told you his name, many of you would know him. He's a successful realtor in this city. But we were at lunch that day, and he was presenting the image on the outside that he was so accustomed to presenting. He was being the person that he figured that, everybody wanted to see. But on the inside, a very different scenario was happening. And as his friend, I had no idea. In fact, I would only find out months later what he was going through on that day. And this is the reality for all of us, right? There's this image that we have to project. There's this definition of success. There's this part of us that is trying to strive to this bigger thing out there, but yet we don't always feel that way on the inside. At least that's the way it is for me. Maybe it's Monday through Sunday, I don't feel like that image, but it's not all the time is the key thing here. There's an image that we're striving towards, and we don't even really understand it half the time. But we expect it. In this industry, it kind of demands it of us, no? We got to be on all the time, or else what? It'll cost you a deal, right? $10,000, $15,000. You got to be available to everybody, and you got to show up the way you want them, the way you think they want to see you. So what do we got? We call it the lawn sign smile. Everybody know this? The lawn sign smile? Come on, everybody, give me your best lawn sign smile. It's a room of realtors. I see a couple. All right, you at the back here, then? I see a good lawn sign smile. Turn to your neighbor, give him a high five, say, you got a great lawn sign smile. This whole area didn't acknowledge each other's lawn sign smiles. Guys, turn to your neighbor, give him a high five, and say, you've got a great lawn sign smile. Come on. There we go. There's some acknowledgement on the lawn sign smile. Come on. The big thing is that we have this image on the outside, this success definition, and that's what we're talking about here today, is the inner game of success. So we have this definition of who we're striving to be on the outside, yet we don't always feel that way on the inside, right? We got to keep it together, though. But maybe there's things that are going on in our lives, like real financial problems, like real challenges, like we heard John talk about earlier, like big setbacks, where they don't have enough money. We heard the other John talk about only having $500. You ever been in a situation where you only got a few bucks left? I remember Subway one time going, I don't think this is going to work. I'm going to look like a real something or other if I can't buy a $6 sandwich when I'm dressed like $1 million. Man, this whole lunch line in front of me, I thought I was going to look like the biggest fool. The idea here is maybe it's not finances, but maybe it's marriage. Maybe you've been grinding, you've been making your calls, you've been getting up early, but you just don't know the conversation that's going to happen when you walk in the door tonight. Because there's been so much tension in that relationship for so long that you don't know when it's going to snap. And you've been saying to yourself, maybe we're never meant to be. Maybe we're just not the right partnership anymore. When you know on the inside that you've just been investing in another area of your life so heavily. Right? Maybe it's not marriage, maybe it's not finances, but your health. There's just something that doesn't feel right anymore. But hey, you got to run an offer tonight. You got to get that offer done. So the doctor, in Canada, that's like a 2-3 month wait. You just push that off. Maybe another Tylenol. We all have these struggles to hold up this image. And what I want to get across here, what I want to share with you, is that in order to defeat the enemy on the outside, we must first defeat the enemy on the inside. Because there's a lie that permeates in this image of success we've been holding up, the thing we've been striving for. Maybe it's a team size, a deal size, a number of transactions, a gross commission income. Like, hey, when I get there, all my problems will go away. Anybody have a goal that they felt like their problems would go away when they achieved it? Yeah, and then they achieved it and they just had the same problems or more problems. And it's the belief that happens when we have these big, audacious goals is that if I can just maybe act like it, like pose like it a little bit, maybe I could just, like a sticky factor, like if I could just act like it, then you'll believe it about me, and then I'll believe it about myself, and then magically I'll become it, right? We know that's not true, but yet we live in that mantra. Like that's the rhetoric that goes on and keeps driving us towards this goal. I'll tell you, I'm really acquainted with this because this is a bit of my story about trying to conquer something on the outside to feel better about who I was on the inside. See, growing up on the playground as a kid, I was always the kid on the outside looking in. I don't know if anybody's been that kid before, but I went to, if you're from Ottawa, I went to Alta Vista Public School. Anybody know Alta Vista? Got some people who know Alta Vista, at least two. If you're not from Ottawa, Ottawa again, yes, Stefan. If you're not from Ottawa, Alta Vista is the neighborhood that you want to sell a house in, okay? This is where the doctors live, the lawyers live, the professional dual income families live there. And the only trouble was, I didn't live in Alta Vista. No, I lived in Heron Gate. Does anybody know Heron Gate in Ottawa? A little different representation from Heron Gate, right? You could tell it was a bit of the other side of the tracks just by that response. So I grew up with my mom in Heron Gate, and I went to school. I took a city bus to get to school because the school buses wouldn't pick us up in that neighborhood. And true story, I think it was just out of the school zone in all fairness. In fact, I would take you to my old house that I grew up in, but it doesn't exist anymore. They tore it down because no one wanted to live in that project. So you can understand that I was from the other side of the tracks. I wasn't all that adjusted. But one day I show up to school in grade 5, and Eric Smith is at school, and there's a circle of people that are around Eric. They're surrounding him from every side, and some of them are crouched straight down, and they're pointing, and there's oohs and ahs, and I'm standing back, and I'm like, what's the deal with Eric's feet? Like, why? What's going on with Eric? Like, did Eric step in something? Like, why is everybody so fascinated with this guy's shoes? Well, you see, Eric wasn't wearing just any shoes. Eric, in grade 5, he showed up with a pair of Air Jordans. Oh. Somebody had an Eric at their school, I bet. Maybe it was John Side. Maybe he went to, you were the Eric at your school, right? One in every room. Eric showed up with a pair of Air Jordans. And I was so perplexed at why people cared so much about what shoes he was wearing. Like, we all got shoes on. What's the big deal? Grade 5 kid, don't know much, right? See, when I looked down, there's nobody surrounding me asking questions about my shoes because I was wearing a pair of Ventures. Anybody wear a pair of Ventures growing up? One person. Awesome. Your mom must have went to Zellers like my mom, because that's where I got my Ventures from, and I'm pretty sure Zeddy himself sold them to me. Told me I could jump just as high as Air Jordan with a pair of Ventures on. I didn't need those, so. But I was the kid with Ventures, and what that situation told me was that if I was ever going to fit in on the inside of that circle, I would have to have something that others wanted to have. I would have to do something that others would deem as a great accomplishment. And so this belief, it just sunk into me that in order to be on the inside of the circle, you got to have something they want or do something they want to do. Anybody ever feel like that? And so that attitude and belief, it just continued on through life, right? I get to high school, and it's not about Air Jordans anymore. It's about great adventures, cool cars. Of course, as guys, it's like, how do we get the attention of the opposite sex? I mean, this is all that really matters for a guy in high school. It's like, because if I win their approval, if a good-looking girl thinks I'm attractive or is into me, then the guys are like, well, what's he doing, man? Colt, you got this. You're the man. And every guy wants to be the man in high school. So I go on this mission of, well, what do I got to do to be on the inner circle? What do I got to do to be accepted? What do I got to do to get females, good-looking females, to want to be around me? I'll tell you one thing women don't want is Zeddy. So that wasn't going to be the secret. But what do women want? You know it. Women want a man with a big wallet. That's what I thought. I thought women want a man with a big wallet. And the reason I believed this was because my friend Markin, he showed up to school, and he drove his dad's Corvette. And he wasn't like this fit, super jock-looking guy, but he dated the best-looking girls in school. And I'm like, how do I get that confidence, right? And I'm like, so I become a student of success. Anybody become a student of success? Right? You start studying their moves. What are they saying? What are they doing? I got to emulate them. That poser again. I start posing. I am just be like them. Be just like them. And so Markin's dad, and what I seen as I was watching others, was a business owner. And business owners seem to have a lot of money. And for me, I didn't want just money. I wanted a lot of money. Because I needed at least $1 million. Because $1 million would allow me to do anything I wanted to do whenever I wanted to do it. Anybody ever think that way? Some of you in this room have $1 million. You're like, you need more than that to do anything you want to do. But I get that. And so anything I wanted to do. So my quest to become a millionaire, I started studying. And again, now every female ladies, I want to just say this. No woman ever told me they were after money, okay? But it was just what I witnessed, is that the best looking women were just magnetically pulled towards these guys that had money. So in my mind, I'm like, gotta have the money to succeed. And so, getting too many laughs up here. I don't know what, revealing secrets. So, I don't know if you've heard this, but I was in my early 20s and on this pursuit for more money, and somebody tells me that 90%, I think it was Robert Kiyosaki, 90% of the world's wealth is made where? Real estate. Yeah, I'll say it again, just in case the people at the back wanted to answer. 90% of the world's wealth is made where? Yeah, you guys know it back there. So I think, screw the 10%. Like, this is easy math. I'm going to go into real estate. I'm going to understand this business. So I bought my first house at 22 years old with 0 down and a 40-year amortization. Oh, man, it's easy to get into this game. I think I'm going to be a millionaire by 30. This is great. I got myself my first house. Turns out the second house was a lot harder to get. It took a little bit more work. But my realtor, a loving guy, he is Sean. Sean says to me, Colt, you'd be great at this business. You should think about getting into it. I said, Sean, man, I don't know. I don't think I got the yard sign smile. Like, I don't think I can cut it. And he said, Colt, you don't even need to have your face on a sign. But it's about helping good people find good homes. You think you can do that? I said, maybe. He said, tell me, Sean, I got one question. What do you think it is? I got one question. How much money can you make? Sean says, well, a good agent makes $100,000 or more dollars, but really the sky's the limit. I said, Sean, I appreciate the offer, but I need to make $1 million. I got to make $1 million. And he said, well, the owner of my company wrote a book on how to make $1 million in real estate. I was like, pardon me? He said, yeah. He said, some people have made $1 million in this business. And so how many know that I was all ears? He had my attention now. I said, you can make $1 million in real estate? And so I signed up. I'm like, I'm in. If you can make $1 million in this business, I'm in. And I went to the courses, the workshops. I listened to every success training, the top agent interviews. I would play them in my car as I drove places. I knew every single road to get to $1 million. I knew all the ins and outs to it, all the nuances, the different strategies. I had them all in my mind. And guess how many I could action? Yeah, not many, as you might have guessed. But thank you for that response. Not many, because the simple little thing is that I couldn't defeat the enemy on the outside. I couldn't overcome my challenges because I'd never defeated the enemy on the inside. And for me, it was rejection. It was not feeling like I belong. It was not feeling worthy. See, I was still that little boy that was trying to fit in to that school ground group and not feeling like I really belonged there. And because I felt that way on the inside, everything I did, couldn't do it consistently, right? I would try the call method, the FISBO method, but after a few attempts and after a little bit of rejection, it was just so uncomfortable, I had to let it go. I hadn't defeated that enemy. And my ego puffed up, because I'm not consciously saying, oh, I'm too weak. That's not the response that we have. We say, I'm going to work, what's the analogy? Smarter, not what? Right? So my ego puffs up and it says, I'm going to work smarter, not harder. Smarter, not harder. This calling people, this door knocking, that's for the chumps. You know, sort of self-talk. No offense to anybody. Self-talk. And I was looking for a new plan all the time. New plan, new strategy. I'm going to try this week, listen to a new speaker. Next week, try that one. Anybody do that? Anybody ever switch plans a little too often? Only to look back and said, if I would have picked up the worst one of those plans and moved forward, I probably would have been in a different place today. Anybody ever follow that script? No one. I'm alone in this room, but I belong. I'm just kidding. The point of this is, I hadn't defeated the enemy on the outside, but I was determined because my definition of success, I had to make $1 million. It was for more than just the achievement and the conquest. For me, it was about validation. It was about becoming someone. It was about being accepted by others. It was about just knowing that I was worth something, right? And so I continued on. I couldn't let it go, and I just, year after year after year, I kept chipping away at it. And I dropped the poser act after a while because it kind of got old when I wasn't successful and it got a little weird. And so I bit into the grit, you know, the do more to succeed. I thought the barrier to my dreams is effort, so I'm just going to keep plowing forward and doing more and doing more. And so eventually, I realized that I'm not so good at this lead generation thing, so I put a team together. Anybody ever see someone put a team together that hadn't really accomplished it? Some of those team members are in the room here. God bless you guys. I put a team together, and my goal is I got to make $1 million. And in that book I was talking about, the first step was gross $1 million, and you got to net $1 million. And so 2018, my team, they sell, not me, they sell 101 homes. And I'm like, yeah, 988,000 GCI. Yeah, I'm on track. I'm going to be a millionaire. 2018. 2019, guess how many homes they sold? The team was totally disbanded. Why? Because I hadn't defeated the enemy on the inside. See, I had built this whole thing and it was a house of cards. It was a house of cards because it was this image of success that I was holding up that I thought I needed for my own credibility. And I was striving towards it and making shortcuts and spending as much money as possible in this thing. And the further I got from who I actually was on the inside, the further I got and the more disconnected I got with who I was, I eventually just crashed. I eventually had to let it go because physically, I had depleted my body to the point where I couldn't fire adrenaline anymore. I got to a place where my nervous system was so messed up, I'd have waves of anxiety come over me, and there was nothing going on. I would just sit there, like practically paralyzed on my couch, staring at the ceiling for day after day after day. And months went by to the point where I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever feel the same way again. It was that terrifying. And it was all because I couldn't let go of this idea that I had to be someone else. I had to be someone that I wasn't authentically. And that's why it's my purpose and my plan to share a talk like this with you. Because some of what you're pushing for is amazing. And some of what you're pushing for is not who you are. It's not authentic to the way you've been created, to the way you've been brought to this earth, to the people you're here to serve. And I don't want you to live like that anymore. My saving grace was that I had amazing people in my life. Along my journey, the highs and lows, I had had some really tough spots, and I was introduced to some amazing, amazing men that got around me. One of them became like a spiritual father and mentor to me. His name was Kari. Huge guy. For those a couple of my friends that know Kari, he was a pro football player. And my dad is amazing, don't get me wrong, but I didn't get a lot of time with him growing up. He had this real battle with alcohol, and he didn't live with us. And so to just go through this insecurity of not really feeling like I was ever enough and trying to strive, when I met Kari, he's just something different. He didn't care about what I did for a living. Never asked me, hey, what do you do? No, he cared about who I was. And so he was able to father me in ways that my dad didn't know how to. And he would just speak life into me. He'd say, Colt, he'd say, I believe in you. You should do this. You got this. He would just come alongside me and encourage me time after time after. And I would want him to say, Carl, tell me what I'm doing wrong, because I keep messing up. Tell me how to fix it. And he wouldn't say anything. You'll be all right, brother. You're doing well. So it was very frustrating, but also what I needed. Kari introduced me to some of his friends as well. And one of them is in the room here, Glenn Floyd, actually. Where are you, Glenn? Quit hiding. Quit hiding. There he is, hiding in the back. So Glenn became like a mentor in the business to me. He as well would speak life into me, just encourage me, check in on me. One thing I love about Glenn, by the way, he makes his calls every single day. And he never asks anyone for business. I used to rag on him when I got into coaching. I'm like, Glenn, you make these calls, you got to ask people for business. He's like, gosh, that's not who I am. I admire that about him. He calls realtors every day. Why would a realtor call other realtors? Just because he cares. I mean, he calls realtors, how's it going? Market's a little tough right now, how you doing? These are the type of people you need in your life. Because when the market shifts, when life shifts, when your closest relationships shift, when your health shifts, you better have a support network around you. And so these men, they spoke life into me. And what they taught me, the first big aha that I had is that my whole life, I had been trying to do things for me. It was all about me. I got to be successful. I got to make $1 million. I got to have nice shoes. It was all about me. And in watching what they did to me, how they interact with me, it taught me that the fulfillment and this happiness that we're all chasing, it comes through serving others. Like when you genuinely care about someone more than you care about yourself, you get fulfillment. When you serve them and help them. And it was very freeing because I used to go to a lot of social functions and I'd walk in there and I'm like, how do I choose between these two events? Because who's likely to give me a deal? It's like everywhere is like commission on the hunt. Anybody ever get stuck in that like weird space as an agent where you're like, thanks, John, Nadia. You understand me. I have a community. Well, it happens to some of us. Anyways, the other great discovery that these men helped me with was that that insecurity inside of me that I couldn't overcome, that inner enemy, it didn't actually start on the playground. I learned through my friendship with them that it started in what we call a wound. And that my relationship with my father, by the way, is an amazing man. Man, he shows up at my house 3 times a week because he's got his first grandchild. And he shows up at my house 3 times a week just to watch his grandson. But because when I was younger, that wasn't the story. Alcohol had really messed him up. And he couldn't be the father and the husband that he really wanted to be. And so, but my insecurity came from the fact that I didn't have the presence and the strength of my dad. And so my first memory, what I learned was that I was holding on to this photo of dad, my first memory of my father. I'm holding on to his photo and I'm bawling my eyes out because it's the first time I'm experiencing emotional pain and it's debilitating. I don't know what to do. And my mom, God bless her, I'm sitting on the edge of the bed with her and she's saying, Colt, sweetie, it's okay. Your dad loves you and I love you. And he'd call you after work. We can't live together anymore. It's just, we're not meant to be married together. But he's going to call you. He's going to see you every few weeks. It's okay. It's okay, sweetie. Nothing she said made sense to a 4-year-old boy. What I heard was, you're not important enough. You're not valuable enough, or he would be here. You must not be valuable enough. You're not worth it. And so this old mixtape from the 80s and 90s just played. Worst tracks you've ever heard from the 80s and 90s, just played over and over. It started at that young age, and this just belief, and then it brought me into high school, and then it brought me, the elementary school brought me into high school, and even in my relationships, it's like I was dating women, and I needed something from them. And then after a bit of time, the women that got to know me best, the one that I was closest with and shared my vulnerabilities with, the ones that I loved. 2 specific times I fell deeply in love. Both of them walked away, and cheated on me with another guy. So it reaffirmed this message of not good enough, not man enough. And man, this is my life's mission, to be the man, to be accepted, to be known. And not good enough was the message over and over and over again. Through all of that experience, I want to share my lowest of lows with you so that you can live in your highest of highs. And the transition here is that without the community around me that saw me better than I could see myself, I wouldn't have known what really mattered. I wouldn't have been able to calibrate on what a real definition of success looks like. Real answer, now raise your hands if you've ever had a false definition of success and you figured it out the hard way. Yeah, a couple. Look at the amount of hands that are going up right now. That's a lot of pain, isn't it? To find out the hard way. So I make it my life's purpose to help leaders align with what matters most. I plead with leaders when I coach them, stop what you're doing. Put your phone down. Block your calendar. I need you to get away. I need you to get away from the noise because you've got a lot of demands in your life and they're legitimate. But I need you to just stop and back away. Get alone in solitude for a period of time. Start taking inventory on what matters in life. Start writing it down. Start writing down the dreams that aren't fulfilled yet, the things that have been inside of you. Write down what's getting in the way. Write down, hey, I've been chasing this thing so long. Drivenness is just who I am. No, drivenness comes from the insecurities. Drivenness is not a natural gifting. Ask yourself, why are you really doing what you're doing? Because I want you to know that you're going in the right direction. I don't want you to end up at a place in your life where you're looking back and you're like, it's too late. I can't redeem this relationship anymore. It's shattered. I can't redeem this health anymore. It's shattered. I want you to take a photo of this QR code. This is a whole life assessment. It's a simple tool that you can use once a month just to check in. The questions in this are brilliant, all right? Whoever wrote it, hats off to you. They're phenomenal. You'll even ask yourself, why is it asking me that question? If you're asking that, write it down. Write that question down and ponder it for a while. This is a tool that's going to give you a map of your life. And it's not 100% complete, but it's going to weigh in on some areas so that you can say, hey, if this were a wheel on a car that I'm driving, and am I headed for a bumpy ride ahead? Is it going to get a little bit ugly? Do I need to maybe distribute some of my energy and some of my focus to what really matters? Next thing I want you to do is get around an authentic community. Now, here's the great part. That's what we're doing here today at Empower Ottawa. How many know that we want to put a community together that empowers one another? So when I... Yeah. You need a community that sees you better than you see yourself, that loves you so much they won't let you lose. That's the kind of community that you need. You need people that lift you up on your worst days. And you know, sometimes when your friends are carrying you, it's not pretty. How many know it's not always pretty? But this community that you're authentic with, and that they don't care what you do, they just care who you are. That's the kind of community you need. Sometimes when they carry you, it's downright ugly. I'm just going to say that. In your lowest of lows, you need people who you can be safe with. Back to that conversation with my friend. At lunch that day, I didn't know what was going on inside of him. I didn't know what he was facing because the shame in him sharing that was just too much to bear. 3 or 4 months later, he came to me and said, Colt, I can't thank you enough for that lunch we had. He said, you played a role in saving my life. I'm like, yo, man, what are you talking about? We just had lunch together. What are you talking? We're just pals, just hanging out. No, you don't understand. He said, that morning, when I woke up, he said, I read through my life insurance policy. because I needed to know that if I drove my car off of a bridge or full speed into a brick wall, that my family would be okay, that they'd be provided for. That's what I wanted to know that morning. And when I had lunch with you that day, everything changed. And you can imagine my shock, my friend sitting across from me telling me this, because I had no idea what was going on inside of him. But in some way, and friends, I don't know what I said to him that day, but I have a habit of just telling, my friends the way I see them, and telling them what I appreciate about them, and how they make me feel. And I want to empower the people around me, because I found out that that's the greatest fulfillment in life. And so, my friend's life trajectory was changed. And now he's helping so many people do some amazing things. But the fact of the matter was that he was holding this image of success. And he had actually achieved way beyond anything he thought he dreamed of. He had an amazing family, wild success at work in real estate. And yet, he felt worse and worse and worse on the inside. And guys and gals, in a room like this, we know statistically that about 50% of people are kind of coping with a really tough situation. And they're going to something like alcohol, and they're trying to medicate a little bit and just take the pressure off. But you're trying to release that pressure from that image in the wrong ways. And so what we can do as a community together is stop posing. We can just be our authentic self. And I'm not talking about vomiting all your problems on each other. Nobody needs that. We need to stay positive, of course, but we need to be real as well. So we want to speak life to one another. Help people go from death to life, from death to life. Right? Because my friend that day, I had no idea what was going on in his life. And in this room, I have no idea what's going on in your life. But if there's any way that I can have a conversation in confidence and in private and encourage you or tell you some success that somebody else has gone through that was in a similar place, that's my mission in life, is to help people that are in dark spaces. And so I'll end with this. I want everybody to say, hey, just check in here. Does anybody want that? Does anybody want to be an encourager of others? Yeah, we got a good crowd here. All right, here's what we're going to do. Everybody stand up. Everybody stand up. Grab your sheet of paper and a pen. I need you to do an exercise here real quick as we wrap. Sheet of paper and a pen. All right, you're going to write 3 words down. It's going to go very quickly. First word you're going to write down is empower. Write the word empower down. Second word you're going to write down is a name. The name of someone. And the person's name you're going to write down is when you came into this event. When you were talking over at the lunch bar, grabbing yourself a Sammy, someone you impressed, someone you saw, someone you know from the past or just met here today, I want you to write down the name of someone that just made you feel a little bit more empowered. Made you feel just, a little bit better. Maybe it was their smile. Maybe it's the way they joke. Maybe it's just the way that they are around you. I want you to write their name down. I want you to write one word down when they come to mind. One word down. When they come to mind, what's the word that pops into your head? Is it light? Is it, somebody said awesome? Is it joy? What is that word when you see their face? Just picture their face in your mind. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to a happy hour in a few minutes, and I want to challenge everyone that we want to make this the happiest hour ever, okay? And it's actually going to be the least profitable open bar that they've ever had at the Infinity Center. This is what I'm proposing. I'm proposing that we don't go to some substance to feel happy, that we actually go to one another and empower each other. Is anybody okay with that? Say aye. Aye. All right. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to go to that person and you're going to say, I've got a word to share with you. I've got a word to share with you. I want you to walk up to them. Maybe you're not as enthusiastic as me. It can be a little bit weird to say, I've never done this before, but I just got something I want to tell you. And I think you're really great. And every time I see you, you make me a better human being. So do what you want with that. It's a little bit weird, but I got to go now. That's okay if you do it that way. But just let that word so deep into their heart. Is anybody ready to empower somebody? Yes. All right. Is anybody nervous but still willing to empower somebody? Say yes. All right, I wanted to say thank you very much. This is a huge honor to get to do this. Turn to your neighbor, give him a high five, and say, I can't wait to see who's next. All right, God bless you guys.
Million nights just like this. So let's get down, let's get down.